Jay Leno looked at the man sitting across from him and said 5 words that made the entire studio gasp. "You're not who you say you are." The Tonight Show audience went dead silent. 300 people holding their breath. The man in the guest chair, a decorated firefighter named Michael Stevens, who had supposedly saved 17 lives during the California wildfires, froze. His smile disappeared. His hands gripped the armrests. Jay Leno wasn't smiling either. He was staring. Hard. The cameras kept rolling. Kevin Eubanks stopped playing. The producers in the booth were screaming into their headsets. Nobody knew what was happening. This wasn't in the script. This wasn't planned. Jay Leno had just accused his guest of being a fraud on live television. And he was right. Let me show you how we got here. It was October 2003. The Tonight Show was in its golden era. Jay Leno owned late night. Every celebrity in Hollywood wanted to sit in that chair. Politicians, athletes, movie stars, musicians, they all came through Studio 3 in Burbank. But Jay had a rule that made his show different from every other talk show on television. He trusted people. When a guest publicist sent over a bio, Jay read it. When they told him a story, he believed it. He didn't fact-check. He didn't interrogate. He took people at their word. That was part of his charm. Jay Leno made you feel like you were talking to a friend, not a journalist. He gave you the benefit of the doubt. But on this particular night, something felt wrong. Michael Stevens had been booked on the show 3 weeks earlier. His story was incredible. He was a firefighter from San Diego. During the massive cedar fire that burned over 280,000 acres, Michael had reportedly run into burning buildings 17 times. He had carried out children, elderly people, pets. He had photos. He had news clippings. He had a medal from the mayor. His publicist sent everything to the Tonight Show producers. They checked the basic facts. The fire was real. The dates matched. Michael Stevens appeared in several local news reports. So they booked him. Jay did his homework. He always did. The night before the taping, Jay read through Michael's file. He watched the news clips. He looked at the photos. Something bothered him, but he couldn't put his finger on it. The photos seemed staged. The interviews felt rehearsed. But Jay had interviewed thousands of people. Sometimes genuine heroes came across as stiff. Trauma did that to people. So Jay pushed the feeling aside. The show started normally. Monologue. Jokes about the governor. A sketch about reality TV. Then Jay introduced his first guest. "My next guest is a true American hero," Jay said. He risked his life 17 times during the California wildfires to save people he'd never met. "Please welcome firefighter Michael Stevens." The audience erupted. Michael walked out in his dress firefighter uniform. Medals on his chest. American flag pin on his collar. He waved. He smiled. He shook Jay's hand. He sat down. And that's when Jay saw it. Michael's hands. They were soft. Too soft. Jay had interviewed dozens of firefighters over the years. He had shaken their hands. Firefighters had calluses. Scars. Rough skin from years of heat and hard work. Michael's hands looked like he'd never held a fire hose in his life. Jay started the interview. "So, Michael, take us back to that first fire. What was going through your mind?" Michael launched into his story. He described running into a burning house. The smoke. The heat. The sound of a child crying. He said he crawled through flames, found a 6-year-old girl hiding in a closet, and carried her out. Jay nodded. He smiled, but his mind was racing. Behind the scenes, Johnny made a decision that defied every producer's expectation. During the commercial break, Jay did something he'd never done before. He turned to Michael and said, "That's an incredible story. Which station were you with again?" "Station 19, Michael said, "in Rancho Bernardo." Jay nodded. "And your captain's name?" Michael hesitated, just for a second. "Captain Rodriguez." Jay looked at him. "Rodriguez. Got it." The cameras came back on. Jay continued the interview. He asked about the second rescue. The third. Michael had an answer for everything. Detailed. Emotional. Compelling. The audience was eating it up. People were wiping tears from their eyes. Then Jay asked a question that wasn't in his notes. "Michael, you said you carried that little girl out of the house. How much did she weigh?" Michael blinked. I don't know. Maybe 50 pounds. 50 pounds, Jay repeated. And you said the smoke was so thick you couldn't see your hand in front of your face? That's right. So, you were crawling, in full gear, carrying 50 pounds, through a house you'd never been in before. Yes. Jay leaned forward. How long did that take? Michael shifted in his seat. I don't know. A couple minutes. A couple minutes, Jay said. His voice was calm. Too calm. To crawl through a burning house, find a child in a closet, and carry her outside. 2 minutes. The audience sensed something was wrong. The energy in the room changed. Michael forced a laugh. Well, it felt like forever. You know how time stretches in those situations. Jay didn't laugh. He just stared at Michael. Then he turned to the audience. Can I ask you all something? Jay said. How many of you have actually been in a fire? A few hands went up. Maybe 10 people out of 300. Jay pointed to a man in the third row. Sir, you raise your hand. What happened? The man stood. My apartment building caught fire in college. I got out, but barely. The smoke, you can't breathe. You can't see. You panic. How long did it take you to get out? Jay asked. Maybe 30 seconds. And I knew where the door was. Jay turned back to Michael. You see, Michael, that's what I'm struggling with. Because I've talked to a lot of firefighters, and they all say the same thing. When you're in a burning building, time doesn't stretch. It compresses. 2 minutes feels like 10 seconds. And crawling through smoke with 50 pounds on your back, in a house you don't know, finding a specific room, finding a specific child, that doesn't take 2 minutes. That takes 10, maybe 15. Michael's face was red now. I was moving fast. Adrenaline. Right. Adrenaline. Jay opened a folder on his desk. Michael, I made a phone call during the commercial break. I called Station 19 in Rancho Bernardo. Want to know what they told me? The studio was silent. They told me they don't have a Captain Rodriguez. They never did. And they told me they don't have a firefighter named Michael Stevens. They never did. The audience gasped. Michael stood up. This is crazy. There must be some mistake. Sit down, Jay said. His voice was steel now. Not angry. Just firm. You're not going anywhere. Michael sat. Jay Leno looked directly into the camera. Ladies and gentlemen, I need to stop the show for a moment. Because what's happening right now is important. This man came on my show claiming to be a hero. He said he saved 17 lives. He wore a uniform. He had medals. He had photos. And I almost believed him. We all almost believed him. Jay turned back to Michael. But you're not a firefighter, are you? Michael's hands were shaking. I did help. I was there. I was a volunteer. Were you? Jay pulled out more papers. Because I also called the volunteer coordinator for San Diego County. They have no record of you either. But this is the moment no one in the studio, and no one watching at home, ever saw coming. A woman stood up in the audience. She was crying. That's him, she said. Her voice was shaking. That's the man who stole my brother's story. Security moved toward her, but Jay held up his hand. Wait, let her talk. The woman walked down the aisle. The cameras followed her. She was in her 40s, dressed simply. Her eyes were red. My brother was a firefighter, she said. His name was David Chen. He died in the Cedar Fire. He saved 12 people before the roof collapsed on him. And this man, she pointed at Michael. This man has been going around the country telling my brother's story, pretending it was him. Even on 3 other talk shows. He's raised money for fake charities. He's been living off my brother's death. The audience was stunned. Michael Stevens, if that was even his real name, had gone pale. Jay Leno stood up. He walked over to the woman. What's your name, ma'am? Lisa. Lisa Chen. Lisa, I am so sorry, Jay said. I'm sorry we gave this man a platform. I'm sorry we didn't catch this sooner. Lisa shook her head. It's not your fault. He's good. He has fake documents. Fake IDs. He's been doing this for 2 years. Jay turned to Michael. Is this true? Michael didn't answer. He just sat there. Jay looked at the camera. We're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, I want to hear about the real hero. Lisa, will you stay? Lisa nodded. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. During the commercial break, security escorted Michael Stevens off the stage. The producers were in chaos. NBC's legal team was being called. But Jay Leno made a decision. When the cameras came back on, Lisa Chen was sitting in the guest chair. "Lisa," Jay said, "tell us about your brother." And she did. For the next 15 minutes, Lisa talked about David Chen, how he joined a fire department at 22, how he loved his job, how he ran into that burning apartment complex knowing it was unstable, how he carried out a grandmother, then went back for her grandson, then went back again for a neighbor, how on his fourth trip, the building came down. Jay listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't make jokes. He just let her talk. Then Jay said, "We're going to do something tonight. We're going to make sure David's story is told the right way. And we're going to make sure people like Michael Stevens don't get away with this anymore." Jay announced that The Tonight Show would donate $50,000 to a scholarship fund in David Chen's name. He also announced that NBC would be working with firefighter associations across the country to verify the credentials of anyone claiming to be a first responder on any of their shows. The audience gave Lisa a standing ovation. She cried. Jay hugged her. The episode ended with Jay making one final statement. "If you're watching this and you've been lied to by someone claiming to be a hero, call us. We'll help you find the truth. Because real heroes deserve to be honored, and frauds deserve to be exposed." The fallout was massive. Michael Stevens, whose real name was Robert Klein, was arrested 3 days later. He was charged with fraud, identity theft, and stolen valor. He had scammed over $200,000 from fake charities. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Lisa Chen's story went viral. The scholarship fund raised over $1 million. 23 students became firefighters because of David Chen's legacy. Jay Leno never talked about the incident in interviews. He was angry at himself for not catching it sooner. But the episode became required viewing for journalism students at USC. It was a case study in live television, investigative instinct, and moral courage. Years later, a reporter asked Jay how he knew Michael was lying. "His hands," Jay said. "Real firefighters have different hands. And once I saw that, I couldn't unsee it." But here's what most people don't know. After that episode, Jay Leno changed how The Tonight Show vetted guests. He hired a fact-checker. He started requiring secondary sources for any heroic claims. He made sure that what happened with Michael Stevens never happened again. And every year, on the anniversary of David Chen's death, Jay sent flowers to Lisa. He never publicized it. He never mentioned it. He just did it. That's Jay Leno's real legacy. Not just the jokes, not just the ratings, but the moments when he used his platform to protect the truth. When he stopped being an entertainer and became a guardian of real heroes. Lisa Chen still talks about that night. She says it gave her brother's death meaning. She says it made sure David would never be forgotten. Michael Stevens served his time. He got out in 2009. He disappeared. Nobody knows where he is now. But David Chen's name is on a firehouse in San Diego. 23 firefighters carry his legacy. And one late-night host made sure a fraud never won. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten.